Well, as a Kiwi rugby fan living here in Mexico, yesterday's URC Championship Grand Final was something that I was getting extremely excited about. And when I saw over 50,000 fans of rugby packed into Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria yesterday, I thought, wow, we're going to have a humdinger experience. And that's exactly what we got. So in this video, I'm going to give you my recap of the game. Talk about some of the players that stood out and find out actually what happened in that amazing game in Pretoria yesterday. G'day everyone and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark and I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. I'm a rugby fan, so that means I get my predictions wrong just as many times as you do. And that was the case again yesterday in the final of the URC Championship. And boy, what a game it was. Absolutely extraordinary. But before we get on to that, I just want to thank you all for watching my videos. If you do like my content, give the video a thumbs up. It always helps on this YouTube thing. And I'd like you to stick around so that we can build a continued global rugby community right here on Inside Rugby, and the best way to do that is to hit that subscribe button as soon as you can. Okay, let's get into talking about the game, and this was a really fascinating encounter for me, and I talked about it in the build-up video because I thought, well, it's too close to call. I didn't know which side to fall on, and I actually gave this one to the Bulls in my prediction, because I just felt that that 50,000 strong crowd at Loftus was going to get them over the finish line in what was going to be surely a very close battle. Now, just racking your memory, 80% of you or so thought that the Bulls were going to win this game in our poll on the community page. So I was probably falling on the side of all of you. But if we know anything about this Glasgow team is that they want to buck the odds. And they went down there to Pretoria after beating Munster at home. And we should have read something into that, I guess, because they put on a great performance to take Munster out. The only other thing was they had to travel all the way to South Africa in a week and take on the Bulls in the cauldron that is altitude at Loftus Versfeld. Were they going to be able to do that one more time? On the other side, we had the Bulls who came through that fantastic test against Leinster. They played very, very well in that game. I'd mentioned in my prediction video of this game whether or not the Bulls had peaked 1 week too early. But the fact was, if the Bulls were going to win the URC Championship this year, I felt they had to play two fantastic games in a row. One to beat Leinster, and the second, they're going to have to back that up to play the Glasgow Warriors this weekend. Now, Jake White in charge of the Vodacom Bulls, of course, as the head coach, and Franco Smith in charge of the Glasgow Warriors. And what was going to be exciting for me in this game was what strategy was both teams going to bring to the game. And as the game got underway, we saw straight away that the Bulls went to their power and their strength and really put a lot of pressure on the Glasgow Warriors. And if it wasn't for one phase of play that Glasgow had in the first couple of minutes, it was all the Bulls. They really started this game strongly, and we saw early on exactly what I'd spoken about in the prediction video. We saw Johan Huijsen and Papier do some really good kicking strategy and put the Glasgow Warriors under a lot of pressure, so that gave the Bulls a lot of territory. But it was through their forwards early on in the game that the Bulls really started to put momentum together. And they just didn't give Glasgow an opportunity to really get into this game, and it was all Bulls for the first few minutes of the game. They then started making the scoreboard tick over a little bit by getting a couple of penalties thanks to Huijsen, and before too long they were out to 6 points to 0. But the thing with this was they were having so much dominance in territory and possession that I thought they should have been putting on more points. And the fact that the Glasgow Warriors defence was standing up, I was wondering how long this was going to last. Remember, in my prediction video, I talked about the Glasgow Warriors potentially running out of energy towards the end of this game as the altitude started to take effect, as well as that long trip to get down to Pretoria to play this actual game. The other component I was looking forward to was watching the scrums in this game. In the very first scrums, the Bulls just basically annihilated the Scottish pack, and it was just really interesting to see how they went about that. It was just brute force, but also some very good technical scrumming in that first scrum. They really got low, they put the drive on, and Glasgow weren't able to handle it. So was that something that was going to set the pattern for this game? Were the Bulls going to be able to rely on that scrum dominance? Or was it actually going to change around later on in the game? That was something I was looking forward to. So we got to the 25th minute of the game and we got a first try in the game. It was for the Bulls. They had a line out on attack. The ball to come out to Marco van Staden. He put his foot down on the gas and got 15 metres to the line. No one was going to stop him. He was like a raging bull, excuse the pun. And he went over under the post. Made the kick really easy for Johan Husen, who got it over, and before we knew it, we had the Bulls right out there in the lead by 13 points to nil after 26 minutes of the game. And this was a big concern for Glasgow, I'm sure, because the Bulls were having a lot of possession, getting territory, making Glasgow really work hard in tackles, and I thought that was going to pay off in terms of energy levels later on in the game. But the Bulls had started really, really well. It wasn't until the 31st minute of the first half, so we were deep into the first half, before Glasgow really had their first big break of the game, and it came way of their fullback McKay, who got through the defence of the Bulls and shot down. Looked like he was going to get to the try line, but he just didn't have enough support or enough speed to get there, and he was brought down by the Bulls defence. But it just showed that Glasgow could get through the Bulls defence. And I thought at this stage maybe the Bulls were getting a little bit tired. They'd been doing a lot of good work in that first 30 minutes of the game. They'd been playing at high pace, and they were having to start to make a few tackles as Glasgow got more and more of the ball. So I thought at this stage things were going to get a little bit interesting. But it was right at the back end of the first half that we had one of the big decisive plays in this game, and it was Glasgow getting over the try line for a try right on half time. In fact, 40 minutes had already gone on the clock, and it was Cummings that got over and scored a great try after the forwards had done some great work for Glasgow close to the Bulls line. So it was a great try by Glasgow. It was converted by Horn, their halfback. And what had been 13 points to nil and a dominant display by the Bulls all of a sudden was 13 points to 7. And Glasgow were back in this game right on half time. So I think it would have been an interesting chat at half time. Jake White would have said to the boys, look, we're showing a lot of dominance. We've just got to keep up our defence in this game. Make sure Glasgow don't get any of those big breaks and score some tries against us. And we should be okay in this final. The crowd was playing an exceptional role in this game. It was fantastic to hear the singing at Loftus Versfeld, and as a Kiwi neutral in this game, I was even emotionally attached to it as well. It was an absolutely fantastic thing for rugby, and this is what we need across the world. So well done to everybody who packed into Loftus Versfeld yesterday to make it such an amazing experience. I'm sure if one had been there, it would have been something really tremendous to watch and to be part of. Tough talk at half-time for Franco Smith at Glasgow, I think, because the team was struggling a little bit. The Bulls showed a lot of dominance in that first half. Glasgow weren't getting any push forward in the forwards. They had some outstanding players, though. Fagerson was playing really well. Dempsey and Darge at the back. In fact, I thought the back three for the Glasgow Warriors were really starting to show at the back end of that first half that they were getting some domination. And we've seen Cameron Honeycomb play that fantastic game the other week against Leinster. He wasn't as prominent in this particular game, and I also made mention of that in my prediction video before this game started, that I'd hoped Honeycomb didn't play his game of the season last time out, but he was playing well. But for the rest of the Bulls were playing really well in the forwards. Van Staden was having a huge game. He did some big things in that first half. But anyway, getting back to Franco Smith, I thought he would have said to Glasgow, boys, we need to open this up a little bit more in the second half. That's the only way we're going to get over top of this Bulls team. We're not going to be able to compete and beat them for the entire 80 minutes up front. We need to find some gaps out wide, and we need to score some tries. I'm sure that would have been the message at half time. So I'm saying in all my videos this year how important it is for teams to be able to score points in the second half. We've seen it a number of times that teams that are not able to score too many points in the second half, they do get beaten. And it was going to be really interesting to see how this one panned out. 13-7 at half-time. Everything was on the line. Whoever was going to score first in the second half, I thought was going to have some momentum advantage. We waited until the 50th minute before there was any points in the second half, and it came way of a penalty to Johan Husen. He got a 30-metre kick over, which stretched the lead for the Bulls out to 16 points to 7. Now this was critical because it was more than a converted try for Glasgow to get back into this game, and you just felt that things were slipping away for Glasgow. They were starting to play better in the second half though, and we saw some fantastic play again from the back three. Ferguson was doing some fantastic runs, as was Dempsey and Darge in the breakdown, getting a lot of ball back from Glasgow. And I felt as though the energy was just starting to change in this game. Glasgow were bringing their level up to where the Bulls were and making them work a bit harder, so they had to make more tackles. And as we saw the tackle count start to change, the Bulls were starting to run out of a little bit of energy. As a result of that, there were starting to be some holes opening up in their defence. So after Usen had got that penalty kick, we just had to wait 3 minutes till the next score in the game, and it was over to the Glasgow team this time. They got down onto attack, and Turner, who'd come on as a replacement forward, been a fantastic forward for Scotland and for Glasgow over the years, got over the line and scored a fantastic try for them. So that brought them back to within 2 points after the conversion was successful from Horn. So we had a real game on our hands as we were heading into the last quarter of this game. 16 points to 14 was the score, and my concern always with this Glasgow team heading down to Pretoria was how were they going to handle the energy levels in the last 20 minutes? Well, we were about to find out. In the 57th minute of the game, a huge momentum shift. I felt the Glasgow team put on a huge scrum performance, and they pushed the Bulls off the ball, and this was the starting of the turning of this game, I really believe, because it gave Glasgow really belief that they were starting to put pressure on the Bulls. And so it was. They continued to put more pressure on, and we started to see Glasgow putting more and more phases together, and the Bulls were having to make a lot of tackles. Needless to say though, the Bulls were playing really well. Papier was playing a really fantastic game at halfback. Huson was doing some good kicking at number 10, and he was also good in distribution. Devon Williams at fullback had stepped up for Willie LaRue in this game, and while he's no Willie LaRue, he was doing some really good things, and he put in a couple of good kicks in general play, I thought, of Williams, and he's got a lot of pace, and on a couple of occasions he broke through the Glasgow first line of defence and was able to set up a second phase play for the Bulls. However, it was Glasgow who were coming back into this game, and as we did go into the last 20 minutes, it was them that was going to score the next try, and it was absolutely crucial in this game. And it came in the 63rd minute of the game. There was an attacking raid down the left-hand side of the field for Glasgow. It came out to Stain. He passed on to Hugh Jones, who was literally unmarked and went over for a try within kicking range for George Horn to get the conversion over. It was a well-made try by Glasgow. The Bulls' defence fell off. Their tiredness was starting to be seen at this stage of the game, and the crowd went a little bit quiet as Glasgow took the lead for the first time in the 63rd minute of the game. Most coaches you'll speak to say there's only one important time to be in the lead of a game, and that's at the last whistle. And I think Glasgow were running to this theory indeed. So it was a very good try by Glasgow. The conversion was successful by Horn, and we had Glasgow in the lead by 21 points to 16. So it was a 5-point game with 18 minutes left on the clock, and the question was, could the Bulls come back? Well, in the next series of play, it was Glasgow again, and they were starting to look like they were really believing in winning this game. And they went very, very close again with another try. In fact, everybody thought they'd scored when Dempsey went over for a try, but it was disallowed because in that build-up play to that, Arantze was taken out and tackled without the ball. So fair enough, it was not a try indeed, and the referee brought us back. Talking about Dempsey, he was having a huge game as the game went on, and I was super impressed by the back three of Glasgow. I think Dempsey, Darge and Ferguson had an outstanding game, and as the game went on, they got better and better. They were just absolutely brilliant on this occasion. And then the period of play around the 69th minute for me was the absolute make or break of this game. The Bulls had territory and possession again. They put together a fantastic 16 phases of play. They put themselves right in the red zone of the Scottish team, and they just pummeled their line. But amazingly, at the end of those 16 phases, the Glasgow defence had stood the test of time, and they ended up getting a turnover and winning the ball. And for me, that was the crux of the game right there with 10 or 11 minutes to go. The Bulls needed to score a try then, I felt, to really have a chance to win this game. They weren't able to do it, and that all comes down to the Glasgow defence. It was absolutely outstanding. And with 10 minutes on the clock, they had answered the call when it came to how much energy were they going to have at the end of this game. And you could see after that particular play, after 16 phases, most of the Glasgow boys were sitting there with huge breaths, taking breaths, bent knees, and gasping for oxygen because it had taken everything they had out of them. But they believed in themselves and they were able to stop the Bulls from getting over the line. But as with a lot of games like this, it wasn't over, and we saw some dramatic things happen in the last 10 minutes of the game. The first one happened in the 71st minute when Glasgow had another penalty opportunity. So Horn had an opportunity to put this game out of reach for Glasgow. He missed that penalty opportunity, so the Bulls were still in it. 21-16 as the clock ticked down. So 73rd minute of the game, another big opportunity for the Bulls. Marco van Staden, who'd been playing absolutely brilliant in this game, got a steal in a critical part of the field. The ball came out to Johan Hussen. He put a kick downfield to give the Bulls an opportunity, but it went dead in goal. So a rare error on this occasion from Hussen, and took away that momentum that the Bulls had an opportunity to get down to the Glasgow line again and put ultimate pressure on them. Now, one of the interesting stats that was coming out of this game was that Glasgow had done more than 5 phases of play on 11 different occasions so far in this game, compared to the Bulls 3. So whenever Glasgow had the ball and they held onto it for a long time, they showed a lot of patience, they showed a lot of guile, and they were able to go forward downfield. And I think that's what actually increased the tackle count and took a lot of energy out of this Bulls team. The Glasgow team were just very good at holding on to the ball and waiting for their opportunity. We saw on a number of occasions Tui Piloto making darting runs and setting up that second phase ball for his forwards to come through, and then it was Darge and Dempsey and Fagerson who were taking the ball up even further. We saw Barty in there as well doing some good runs, and it was just a really extremely good team effort from Glasgow that were helping them put phase after phase together. And it doesn't matter who the defence is, they're going to get tired at some stage and they're going to open up at some stage, and that's what had started to happen throughout this game. So we were in for an absolute humdinger in the last few minutes of this game with just 5 points in the game. The Bulls had to score a try or a converted try to win the game, and it was coming down to a knife edge again. It was a pretty intense scenario. You could see through the fans' faces in the stadium there at Loftus Versfeld how much it was affecting them. But in the 77th minute, another huge play in this game, and it was Jordan, the number 10 for Glasgow, who got sent off with a yellow card for a dangerous tackle. And once again, the intensity levels within the stadium went up. Glasgow were all of a sudden down to 14 men. The Bulls were putting phase after phase together, and they had an opportunity now to get right down into the red zone of Glasgow and try and win this game in the last 90 seconds. Were they able to do it? Well, one of the things I picked up in that last 90 minutes was that the Bulls had a line-out opportunity 5 metres out from the Glasgow line. Aka van der Merwe was throwing the ball into the line-out. It was definitely not straight. It went onto the Bulls side of the line-out. The referee did not make a decision on that, let play go on. They didn't score from that particular play, and they had another opportunity for a line out just a few seconds later. But as a neutral sitting there, I can tell you that ball was not thrown in straight, and the referee didn't pick it up on that particular occasion. Just shows in the last couple of minutes of these extremely tense games, the pressure's on everybody. And that's how it was through to the last few seconds of the game. It reminded me so much of that quarter-final in the Rugby World Cup last year between the All Blacks and Ireland, where the Irish were camped down on the All Black line, throwing phase after phase towards the All Blacks. That's exactly what was happening in these last few minutes of this game. We had the Bulls down on attack. They were throwing everything at this Glasgow team. The Glasgow team were just about out on their feet, and it was a matter of who was going to win the day. Was it going to be the defence, or was somebody be able to get over for a miracle try and snatch the game in the last seconds? Well, on this particular occasion, the defence won out, and Glasgow ended up getting the ball from the bottom of a maul. The referee blew full time, and that was it. That was the end of the URC Grand Final Championship for 2024. The Glasgow Warriors had beaten the Vodacom Bulls by 21 points to 16. Now, it was an absolutely fantastic game of rugby. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on, even though if you're a Bulls supporter, I'm sure you'll be hurting today. And I'm sure if you're a Glasgow supporter, you'll be very jubilant in them picking up another URC competition win. But it was a fantastic game of rugby, and it was a game of two halves where we saw the Bulls doing some fantastic stuff in the first half, and then Glasgow coming back and just believing and sticking into the game and sticking to their game plan. They just went out wide every opportunity. They had so many good players on the pitch, as did the Bulls yesterday. And if I was sitting down trying to make a player of the match, I think it'd be almost impossible to do it for this game. Dempsey, Darge and Fagerson were brilliant. I'd probably give Fagerson the tip if I had to pick one individual, but he was absolutely brilliant. But you had people like Venter coming on for Glasgow in the last 10 minutes and having some fantastic runs and doing some great stuff in defence. You had George Horn, who was doing a fantastic job from halfback yesterday, and even Jordan, until he went off in the 77th minute of the game, was having a really good game. But then Tui Piloto and Hugh Jones in the centres were doing some fantastic work, both on defence and on attack yesterday for Glasgow. And the number of touches they had on the ball yesterday was absolutely outstanding. So hats off to them, a brilliant game. And then how the Glasgow forwards came back in that second half and put the pressure on the Bulls scrum, an area of the game where I thought the Bulls were going to have dominance throughout the whole game, even when they brought on their reserves in the second half. But it wasn't the case. Glasgow hung in there and they believed in themselves. It was brilliant to see. On the Bulls side, they had some fantastic players. Their probably standout from me was Papier and also Van Staden. I think they had two brilliant games yesterday on a losing side. Hoosen played really well, except for that kick he put into the dead ball area at a fairly critical time of the game. I won't say it lost them the game. But I think overall, I think the Bulls had probably played their final against Leinster, and they just left a little bit open, the door open a little bit for Glasgow to run through yesterday. And Glasgow, to their credit, were able to do that. But a fantastic performance. Did the Bulls miss Willie LaRue? Yes, I think his experience would have been very instrumental in this game, but I'm not taking anything away from Devin Williams. I think he played a really good game. He did what was expected of him, and he wasn't the reason, I believe, why the Bulls lost this game. It was just a Glasgow team turning up and believing in that last 20 minutes that they could win this game and take it from the Bulls, and that's exactly what they did. So there we go. That's my recap on the URC Grand Final that was played at Loftus Versfeld yesterday in Pretoria. The winners were Glasgow Warriors, 21 points to 16. They take away the championship this year. And now we can get all set for some fantastic international rugby that's coming up. So first of all, I'd like you to leave your comments in this video about the game yesterday between Glasgow and the Bulls. Let me know what you thought of the game. And if you're a Bulls supporter, I know that you're hurting today, but appreciate that your team had a fantastic season. They just weren't able to get across that last finish line. But what a spectacle at Loftus Versfeld yesterday with the 50,000 plus people that turned up. You've got to be fantastically proud of that moment, because it was a great spectacle for rugby across the world. To the Glasgow Warrior fans, fantastic job, well done, you deserved it, you played well, you bet Munster in the semi-finals away from home, then you went down to South Africa and you bet the Bulls away from home. Not too many teams would be able to pull that one off. You guys did it, and you deservedly win the championship. And Franco Smith, a great coaching performance. Often coaches get a little bit overlooked when it comes to winning these big competitions, but I think Franco Smith did an amazing job with Glasgow Warriors this year, and can't wait to see what happens next year in that camp. Okay, well that's it for this particular video. Don't forget, we're now moving into the International Test Series season, and I'm going to be covering all of those games right here on Inside Rugby. So hit the subscribe button, give this video a bit of a thumbs up as well, and let's get ready. The All Blacks are going to be announced tomorrow in New Zealand. I'm going to be bringing you a video about my thoughts around that squad as we get ready for England coming down under after taking on Japan and beating them yesterday in Tokyo comprehensively. And we're going to get ready for that big clash in South Africa between the Springboks and Ireland, which everybody is waiting for to see what happens there. So I'll be back with plenty of content around all those games. Until then, stay safe, stay well, everybody. Keep enjoying your rugby no matter where you are in the world. And I'll see you again really soon right here on Inside Rugby. Until then, it's time to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Bye for now.